Today I thought I would compare the THR5 by Yamaha to the THR10, which I don't have. I mean, I had to basically decide which one I wanted to purchase early on. And when I was just reading the specs and things, there didn't seem to be too much overall difference. But in this video, I would like to just relate a couple things that made me feel like, gee, if I had known this beforehand, I probably would have bought the THR10 instead. And the difference between the two overall is like the THR10 is a little bit, let's see here, it's a little bit wider, maybe this much wider or something. And it has a few extra options on top that turn out to be quite substantial in my day-to-day use of this thing. So one of the things I use this for isn't really guitar related at all. I make heavy use of the auxiliary input there to just use it as a set of portable speakers for my iPod or my Discman or whatever. And that turns out to be great because this thing runs off of batteries, so I just stick some Eneloop rechargeable batteries in it and I can put it anywhere. And also sometimes I plug it in and whatnot, but that turns out to be very useful. One downside, however, to the THR5 is that for that aux input, there's no volume control. The volume knob you see right here actually only controls the guitar volume, the sound of the guitar amp. And the aux input is just a straight preamp input straight to the power amp section, so you have to control the level with the volume control on your upstream device. So with an iPod, you just use the volume controls on the iPod, and the Discman, you just use the volume controls on the Discman. But today I was thinking, gee, I should get something kind of permanent set up in my office. Why don't I plug in a CD player? Well, hey, guess what? You plug in a CD player into that input jack, and you just have a straight preamp output on the CD player to a straight preamp input, and there's no volume control in between. And that's pretty much useless because this thing, it's pretty damn loud for just sitting next to it, listening to it when you have a line level signal going straight into it. So that's something where the THR10 actually has two volume controls. They have a guitar volume and like a aux input volume. I can't remember exactly how they're labeled, but that's what they are basically. One volume knob is for that auxiliary input. The other volume knob is for the guitar sound. And so this one's kind of deceptive. It looks like it's a master volume for everything. Actually, it's not. This is just the same as the guitar volume control on the THR10. And the other drawback to the THR5 that I've found is that there's no presets. Where's the preset section on the THR10? It's over here. There's like 4 buttons where you can save 4 presets. And at first I thought, that's not that big of a deal. I usually just dial up a sound and that's that. And it's not that hard. There's just a few controls. It's not that hard to dial up a sound. But what I ran into is I actually installed the editor and got into it and started tweaking some of the things that you can't tweak on the front panel. For instance, you can switch speaker cabinet models for an amp model. And I kind of like some of the other speaker cabinet models. Then they have a sign, like to the Brit high gain sound, I actually like the other 4x12 cab model they have. And I can set that up in the editor. But with this thing, there's absolutely no way to save it. There's no way to save it. Like for line 6, when you've got these amp models you can select, for their products, you can assign the amp and cab configurations that go with each of these presets, and it kind of sticks. With this, there's no way to do that. You set whatever setting you want to do in the editor, and then once you unplug it, you're back to whatever default cabinet was assigned to whatever default amp, and the same pretty much goes with the other effects. If you're changing the delay feedback level on one of your delay settings here with the effects, you can do that in the editor. But then once you go back, unplug and go back to use this somewhere else, you're back to whatever default setting there was. And as far as I can tell, and I've really looked, there's no way to change those defaults, at least as of this current version. This is like towards the end of July 2012, and maybe someday they'll update the firmware to where you could do that. But at this point, you can't with the THR5. And so that's another place where I'm thinking, gee, if I just got the THR10, you know, it's like $100 more. I could have then made those tweaks, saved them to a patch, and then it's a way to kind of get around the limitations of the controls that they give you on the front panel. And that, to me, I think that could have been useful. I mean, it's still a terrific amp. I use it all the time. And I just have to put up with whatever limitations they have as far as guitar sound is concerned. And as far as the preamp input is concerned, I just have to kind of work around that. So other than that, I think the thing's absolutely fantastic. I like the fact that it's so lightweight. It's battery powered. You get a nice mottled sound coming out of the speakers, but they're also kind of full range speakers without hardly any bottom end, but it's just like a little ghetto or something, you know, like, so essentially full range speakers that you can plug your CD player in and iPod and stuff. I think it's a terrific niche that they've kind of filled here that wasn't filled very well. The only other amps I were even considering before was like maybe the Line 6 Spider Jam amps or something like that, or the Spider series. But again, those are like combo amps that are, even the little ones, are kind of too big and bulky and heavy with the big speaker to sit on your desk. And except for the Spider Jam, they don't really have anything that's claimed to be close to a full range speaker. So this, I think, is a terrific deal, but in hindsight, you know, I think there's enough advantages with the THR10 that just for that alone, those 2 points alone, I probably would have gone ahead and spent the other extra $300. So in case you're like me, you're sitting there debating back and forth, you know, what are the advantages, disadvantages, I think those are two key important points that you should consider before you decide which one to pick up.